this video, I'm going to be talking a lot about tile. Specifically, what kind of tiles, the makeup of tiles, where things should be used, why they should be used in certain places, why they should not be used in certain places. You're going to get a big education about tile. Floor coverings and wall coverings, as it were. I have waited a long time to do a video like this. I've been requested many times. I just haven't had the time to go through extensively and talk about all this stuff. So stay tuned and be patient. It's going to be a long video. So be patient, please. So basically, there are three types of tile. Three types of tile, meaning, I'm going to focus in on here first because it jumped out at me. Three types of tile, meaning you have ceramic, you have porcelain, you have natural stone, and you have porcelain. That's basically the only three tile makeups that you have. Let me explain the difference a little bit with these, specifically because these all replicate natural stone. So what we have here is basically a glaze. I don't know if you can see the little dots on here. It's really hard to see on camera. But basically it's kind of this is a low-end ceramic tile. And ceramic begets a lot of different material. I would call this a glazed clay because it looks like clay. Literally it looks like clay at the bottom. And if you ever damage this tile, if you ever drop your keys on it, potentially you're going to have a little chip and you're going to be looking at a brown spot forever and ever until you can get some touch-up paint to make it right. This tile is probably running, my best guess is about 89-90 cents a square foot. I have no use for it whatsoever. The pattern replicates itself quite a bit, so you're going to have a hard time matching up any of these veins, these fake veins that are in it. And so that's kind of the low-end tile. I don't suggest getting low-end tile. Any tile job is going to be relatively expensive, and my take on it is spend more for your tile and you'll get a better job. These tiles are very thin, by the way, and then in addition to that, these have a tendency of not being exactly. So this is a 12 by 24, but that's a nominal measurement. Most tile are not truly a 12 by 24. This one might be 11 3/4, but when you set these tiles next to each other, end to end or side by side, you're going to be offset by probably 1/8 of an inch if you match them up end to end by 1/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/16 if you're really lucky, or a 32nd. And that matters because as you stack tile sideways, upward, wherever, incrementally that's going to go up and up and up until you're about 1/4 of an inch discrepancy. Then you're in trouble. That's why I don't like low-end tile. Medium range tile would be your porcelain. Medium range goes it would be a high-end tile if not there were so many so-called porcelains out there. My cat's in the way. Go ahead, walk right over. So when I say medium range porcelain, it's a decent porcelain. I don't really have a problem with it per se. Getting a good porcelain, meaning that you're square, right, as opposed to that tile which has rounded edges, a little bit of a rounded edge, that you're square, that it says rectified on it, means that you're going to get a good, decent quality tile. But there's a lot of manufacturers that are putting rectified on their box that aren't truly rectified, that they're kind of in this range over here, this low range over here, so that's why I call this a medium range. This one specifically is probably at that medium range area. I've dealt with a lot of this stuff before, and there are better quality porcelains out there. Then you have the real thing, which this is marble. And you can tell clearly because all the veins go through and through. So when you're dealing with marble, a couple of things. Well, a lot of things with marble, with a natural stone, as it were. This is a polished natural stone. Some natural stones are not polished. This is a polished one. When you get into these veins, let me back up. When you look at the bottom of this tile, and when you start seeing cracks, or you see little imperfections or whatever, it means the veins are going to be weak. So this tile is going to run you, so the price on this is typically about the high $2. So it might be $2.79 or $3 or something like that. $3.25 is going to get you a really good porcelain tile. This is going to run you about $4 or $5 a square foot. So this one tile is going to be about $8. $8 is a lot to spend on a tile. So you have to make sure that your tile is well put together. So in other words, it comes from a vein, in like literally a vein of marble that's in the ground, and when they take it out, there's better quality and lesser quality. Some of those veins are very weak, and as you run your tile saw, which vibrates, it vibrates those veins, and then you're wasting a lot of this tile. So just make sure that you spend a little bit more on your tile. All of these are I guess appropriate for either a wall or a floor, although this one, because it does chip, is probably less appropriate for a floor. If you wanted to go on cheap end, I would only suggest using this for a wall, but make sure that you're picking out the tile the best you can where the veins aren't kind of mix match. There's another thing about tile too. I saw it on this one. I didn't check on this one. They have arrows. Most all large format tile have arrows. And so when you have the next adjoining tile, that arrow should also be down here so that you're running all your arrows together, which will get all your veins to match up potentially. Doesn't always work that way, but that's what the arrows are for. I didn't really check this one. I think there might be one. Sometimes they're hidden very well. But almost all the large format tile that are patterned will have an arrow on it. So that's the different types of tile, and that would go across the board really with all this other tile. All this other tile falls into one of these categories, and so I'm going to get to a couple more of the porcelain, so-called porcelain. So I kind of did the same thing the best I could when I went to Floor and Decor. They had different colorations as opposed to this where it's kind of few. The different colorations are really meant to replicate a natural stone, which is this back one. Then you have your better quality tile, which is this porcelain, very thick, and then you have your lesser quality tile, which is, again, this glazed clay. So the same stuff that I just got through talking about here holds true to this. These have a specific pattern, and this is the lower quality porcelain. You can tell that the tile is rounded on the edge here. It's not flat and straight like this one is. And so you know this is not a rectified tile. You're not going to find a cheap ceramic tile and rectified. There's the arrows. Very distinctive too. You're not going to find a cheap ceramic tile that's rectified. You know, they're almost always going to be porcelain, period. And then you have your natural stone. So the natural stone, I'm getting back to what I said before with the veins, with regard to the veins. When you get into a travertine, you see all these pits? A lot of times what they'll do is take the dust that, you know, they generated by cutting all this stuff, and they'll pack the dust inside these pits. So you want to look around on the back of it to make sure that they didn't just pack all the dust with that. That's not really the best tile when it comes to travertine. You want the less pits that you have. When you look at something like this on the entire tile, that's a better tile. When you start looking at a very, very pitted tile, that's a lesser end, and you're going to spend less for that tile because guess what? It's going to fall apart just like that tile is going to fall apart when I cut it. So you're going to waste more tile by spending a little less. That tile has an arrow. The porcelain look-alike. Like I said, sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes they're not there at all. This one doesn't seem to have one, but you know, be that as it may. That's kind of, ooh, and look at the size difference. 12 by 24, 12 by 24, 12 by 24. All three of these are a different size, right? And that's what I was getting at before. Even these two, when I set those side by side, the discrepancy is about ½ an inch. So there's no true 12 by 24. Know that to be true also. If you're trying to do measurement from floor to ceiling or something like that, or even on a floor, you're going to have to know that. Then we get over to what I call lined tile. Lined tile comes in a whole gamut of different designs. This certain one, you don't need arrows on the back of here. This certain one, because you're just going to line up all the lines. And so this is only problematic kind of for a specific reason. When you're trying to get bullnose, for example, you have to make sure when I do niches, my niches will need a bullnose that goes this way, and then I'll have to get an elongated bullnose to go that way above the niche. If you're using this on a tub, a backsplash of a tub, you're going to have to make sure all your lines match up and all that stuff. So this is only problematic with making sure that everything lines up. And I'm kind of ambivalent about using this tile. But it is still a good quality tile. It's rectified. It's very square, very sharp in fact, on the edges. And every tile, so when I say rectified, every single tile should match every single tile. When you take a cheap tile like this one, like that one, or this one, the brown one, when you take it out of the box, and then you take one out of another box, and you set them side by side, they should line up perfectly. That's what a rectified tile is. Non-rectified tile, they won't line up perfectly, and you know if you have a good quality tile or not. Then we get on to textured surfaces. This has a very, very distinct texture on it. You can tell on here, a little grainy on the top of it. And I like the texture tile, and there's different types of makeup on texture, but I like that for floors. So this would be, let me get back. Any of these tile would be good for a floor or a wall. So don't get confused when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any place and they say, oh, this is a floor tile or this is a wall tile. Don't get confused about that. Any of these tile are appropriate for either. Having said that, you still don't want a ceramic on your floor. That's just my take on it. So this would be a good floor tile because it's non-skid, non-slip. You're not going to, like this one, very shiny. Yeah, you can definitely fall with that. So those are the differences of the makeup of the tile, the size of the tile, rectified as opposed to non-rectified, and price structure. Pay more. As I said, $3 a square foot is a good range to be in. You know, the high $2 into the $3 range. Then we get over to this type of tile, and the reason that I didn't put it here because it matches, because it doesn't. This is like an 8 by 18. This is also this is also a ceramic tile. This is a different type of, this is a very soft ceramic, as opposed to this clay tile, which is a little bit harder, a little denser. Very, very soft. This is like a hot knife through butter with my tile saw. And I like these and I don't like them. And the reason, usually, on a real cheesy one, the glaze doesn't wrap around the edge. That matters to us, because when the glaze doesn't match, especially on a darker ceramic like that, when the glaze doesn't match up totally, we have a really hard time filling that in with grout to kind of hide that brown. And so this is a little better quality soft ceramic, but that's basically what it is. When you look on there and you kind of see this orange, this light orange color, you know you're looking at a soft ceramic. They're about a medium range price also. They're not necessarily cheap all the time. I've seen soft ceramics at the tile store, which is a high-end tile place, and they're getting a good amount of money, $4 for one of these or $6 or whatever, just for one. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea, a little bit of the makeup of the tile, what tile is better than another, rectified as opposed to non-rectified, and then we get to the natural stone section again. So this is a slate tile. Slate tile is like a croissant. You can see that there's definitive layers like a croissant would have, and all these layers are just stacked up on, again, natural stone out of the ground, and then they just cut it down. And because it's a natural stone, and I don't know the reason why they can't ever get these exactly straight, but with the slate tile, you're going to have discrepancies like this, a lower end over here. In fact, this one is not a good example, but usually they're thinner on one end and thicker on the other. So you're going to have, there's no way you can get these lippage free. The only way you can do it is to kind of like taper out your grout at the end. And there's a lot of issues with slate. Slate is extremely porous, very, very porous. I have no use for this in an inside situation unless you were using it for a kitchen floor. Having said that, I have built a couple of showers out of 100% slate. Slate bullnose, slate, different sizes of slate that this customer had bought. Even slate on the 2x2 mat like this, it will be completely slate. It is imperative when you're dealing with a very soft natural stone like this, extremely soft natural stone, that you seal it very well, that you pre-seal it, that you put it outside and you seal it very well, top, bottom, sides, and all that stuff prior to putting it in. Because our worst nightmare when we see this is not only setting it, because our thin set has to be very runny, but our grout has to be very runny. And if you don't seal it, it makes our job a lot tougher. When I see this done, usually there's grout remnants sitting in these little edges here because they let the grout sit on there too long, or there's thin set or whatever. It's a very messy type of tile to deal with, although it's very soft. So it's, again, like a hot knife through butter, cutting it and all that stuff. But again, it's problematic for a lot of reasons. It will flake off on you as you're cutting it. It's just very problematic. So yes, seal it very well before installing it. This is a good outdoor application. If you were to do, sorry cat, I was in your way. If you were to do, say, a patio, concrete patio or something like that, I would have an application for it outside. I've seen it inside. I've seen it on kitchen floors and stuff like that. I'm not hip on it because, again, that tripping hazard and stuff like that. And then you have the fake, the faux slate tile, which this is. This is I think this is a 16 by 16 slate tile. It is also a porcelain tile, so it's very sturdy. But I have used this, I think, a couple of times. I think the last time I used it was 3 or 4 years ago. I used this on the porch because the porch was completely concrete, so I just used it on all the steps, the landing, and then all the steps. And I was able to set it exactly the spacing that they had it, and then I used the Lorraine grout, so it looked like they were individual pieces. So this is an option to using something like that. And with this, you don't have any of that lippage thing. So this is a definite option. If it's set right, it'll look really sharp. And that has to do with natural stone. So moving on from there, in line with natural stone, hi cat, in line with natural stone, we have a 4x4 tumbled marble. And the tumbled marble sometimes is same thing as over there. If it has a lot of pits in it and everything, it's not quite as good. This one is a very good one. This 4x4 is actually a really, really good matchup to the Travertine, which is buried. That's what I have in my shower. It is porous, so it does need to be sealed. And what you're looking for is the less pits as possible. 4x4 is usually optimal. The other natural stone would be on this mat, and that is basically like a smaller version of this 2x2 on a mat, and I like this too. It's a very, very stiff backing, so this is a very good tile, and it also matches to the natural stone Travertine. But if you don't want that, again, natural stone has to be sealed, then you could go with something like this. This is porcelain, and it's a good application for a lot of different tile, including if you have natural stone. You can mix and match tile, by the way. You know, you can have a natural stone wall and then do a porcelain floor, or vice versa. So, yeah, there's that. Another natural stone would be what's called OG, an OG trim, and I have this on my shower, and it looks really nice on porcelain. Put it on the end. Sometimes people want to put it like that, but that's usually how it's supposed to go. Then you do your little 45 cuts where you need to, where it ends at, top and or bottom. That is also for the sides of a shower, and it would run all the way up to the ceiling, and then you can just stop it. Or you could go with a bullnose, and a bullnose is a nice end cap, and that runs all the way the same way, where you do a 45 at the top and or the bottom, and because it's porcelain, it's a lot more dense than this natural stone. It's also cheaper. This usually runs about $4 or $5 each. This runs about $7 or $8 each. Then you get over to another natural stone, which is sometimes people call it a pencil. This is the Travertine type of material, and you would run it in the same way along the side. This is actually a 3/4 piece, and they have smaller ones, which I don't particularly like because you don't have enough girth back here to put thin set on and all that stuff. But one of the reasons I really like this the most, it's a nice transition from your field tile. Field tile is what the preponderance of your tile happens to be. And this is a nice transitional point if you're going to do a border. So at eye level, 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot, or whatever. So you would put this at the bottom and put another one at the top, run your field tile up against it, and run your field tile up against it, and you don't have to worry about bumping this stuff out, because again, this is usually not as thick as your field tile along with the thin set, and it works on this too. This is actually, this mosaic is usually cut in half with one of these running top and bottom, and that's a nice look also, you know, for a border type situation. By the way, if you're going to run this along your border, or even if you're going to do it on your backsplash, it's best to find the last one over and then just cut with your wet saw all the way down, so you have a flat edge starting out, and when you get down to the end, do the same thing. It'll stop you from having to put in all these little fill-in pieces. And this does run as a pattern, so each one of those would just slide into the next one. Whereas this one, and this is a 12 by 12, and this one also started as a 12 by 12, so you just cut off as much as you want. Mostly natural stone. There's a bunch of glass in there, obviously. So those are those. Getting on to more natural stone, and I say natural, it's not really natural. This is what is called a cement tile. Cement tile is a very, very thick, very heavy type of tile. But if you notice, it's kind of painted on. It's not even a glaze like most tile are glazed, right? So this is painted on. And as you can tell, I bought this brand new, but it already has a couple of scratches on it. It's a very expensive tile. I think one of these alone is like $8. So I recently did this on a floor, and I think the guy regrets having done it on a floor, on a bathroom floor. I don't see really an application for this that would be palatable where you wouldn't have damage, because it's going to chip and you're going to run off the glaze on the top of it. And it's also patterned. You see the little circle there, so 4 of them come together to make kind of one tile. Whereas this is a faux natural stone, and you can tell it's a little distressed. That's not dirt on there. It's meant to be that way. But it's a porcelain, and because it's a porcelain, you're not going to have all the disadvantages of that one, and it's probably going to be cheaper for you too. Same thing, it's got a pattern, and so 4 of those come together to create that pattern. So that's a much better application. With this, you want to seal that, same as your other natural stones. You want to seal it very, very well. It's extremely porous, so the bottom part especially you want to seal. Not so much the top, the sides and the bottom before you install it. And then we get on to this last natural stone, which is just basically a clay. You see this a lot at McDonald's. You see it on the floor because it has a texture to it, so it's non-skid. And you'll see it in not just McDonald's, but a lot of restaurants will use this. And you know, it's a good, decent tile. Usually an outdoor application would be appropriate, although you could use it in a kitchen. I don't know that I'd use it in a bathroom, but it's definitely a floor tile. But I say definitely, if you had an application for a wall, you could also use it as well. So that's all. Thank you, Kat. That's all the natural stone products, and then we come on to the ceramics. And these are just basic ceramics. This is builder's grade, non-quality type of ceramic. What you'll typically see on a shower from the 90s and stuff like that is a 4x4. And this is just same basic idea as this. You see that little orange type thing, like a hot knife through butter. So it's the same type of makeup. But the ceramic quality is a little better, even though this one and that one kind of run in the same family. Look, that one over there. You don't have that clay disadvantage about that. So this is a very soft type of stone. Sorry, soft type of ceramic, and I'm not really crazy about it. Don't really have a lot of application for it lately. In that same family, you would have one of these, which is basically, if you're running your floor and your wall together, you would run that. And that would just go up against there, and then you would run your wall tile going up. So that's a cove-based type of tile, and you can see on the edge there. Then you get to, this is called a mud cap, and this is called a bullnose. And bullnose are flat, same as wherever that bullnose is. Oh, right here. So bullnose is flat, whereas mud cap is meant specifically if you had some sheetrock. Sorry, if you had a double layer sheetrock. So you would have, say, this sheetrock, and then you would have, this would be your sheetrock and tile. Sorry, I'm confusing you. So you have normal sheetrock. This would be your normal sheetrock on your wall. Then you'd have a second layer of sheetrock on top of that, and the mud cap would sit on top of here and hide the edge of the second layer of sheetrock. And that's what a mud cap is used for. Sometimes you see them on a countertop back in the day, and I don't know why, because it's kind of ugly, but you would see those on a countertop, kind of like that. So it would just kind of trim off the edge of the counter, give it a more girthy type of look. These have what I used to call ears. They're little bump outs. And when you set these up together, you're relegated, because it's already making a spacing there of 1/16 of an inch, so you're relegated to unsanded grout. And a lot of contractors back in the day would use these on walls and floors of your shower with unsanded grout, which is a big no-no on your shower floor. And it's something I don't like to do even on a wall in a shower, because I know that that unsanded grout is, you have a very, very thin line of grout that doesn't go very deep, and eventually settling of your building and stuff like that will pop out your grout. So I don't really have a use for these ceramics nowadays. Every once in a while I get called in older neighborhoods to use that. Also understand, of all this tile, this 8-inch tile and 12 by 24 and all the different sizes that they have, 16 by 16, and now we're getting up to 5 foot by 5 foot. There's also the standard 12 by 12, 13 by 13, and that's all nominal. Back in the day, we used to just stack 12 by 12 or 13 by 13 straight up and all that stuff, and those were the easy days. Nowadays, we're offsetting our tile. Another reason to use leveling clips, because when you do offset, these large format tile usually have some type of bend in them, and the leveling clips will definitely help you. For our glass tile. And glass tile is kind of weird. People are afraid of it because they're afraid of chipping, they're afraid of cutting their hand, they're afraid of a lot of things with glass tile. And rightly so. When you're cutting it, you have little shards like this that can pop up, and you can, you know, I've bled a couple of times because of these little pieces and stuff. But, you know, honestly, it's not a bad looking tile. I did an entire shower 3 years ago using this 3 by 6 on a brick type pattern from the floor to the wall, 8 foot tall. And it was literally, it was like stacking brick. It was a very long, arduous process. It has this backing, and the backing must stay intact. And, you know, if it doesn't, if you scratch it or something like that, it's just a piece of glass. Because the backing gives it that gray look, right? This is just clear through and through. They could have put a red backing back there. They could have put a blue one, you know, any color they wanted. In this case, they chose gray. So just be careful when you're handling this stuff and setting it and all that stuff. And also use white thin set. You don't want, just in case, you don't want to be using gray thin set. And I'm going to get to the thin set thing in a minute here. White thin set, obviously, with this glass tile. And again, a white backing, because it's just clear, same thing. And you could do like a checkerboard if you wanted to, get a whole bunch of these. It'd be kind of funky. Then you have something kind of funky too, like aluminum foil. So again, clear through and through. The backing gives it the look. So it's like a distressed aluminum foil type of look, which isn't bad. I've never worked with it before. I don't know a proper application for it. You could do a whole shower in that. That'd be kind of cool. I would really like to do something like that. But what I really want to do, I've seen this years ago. a glass tile or a mirrored tile. And again, a little distressed look because the backing denotes what the front looks like. And they do have clear mirror tiles without the distressed look. I would love to do this in an entire shower. It would just be so awesome. When I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, but nobody wants to do it yet. Then you have patterned type of tile, striped type of tile, that same thing. You know, the back of it kind of denotes. Oh, and I like this too. Look, they give you little ridges so the thin set will stick better, whereas these ones are flat on the back. So yeah, a lot of different choices to make as far as what type of tile you want. These obviously are going to be for a wall somewhere. These are going to be for a wall or a floor, specifically for a floor of a shower. Well, you could do a floor, you could do an entire bathroom with this tile if you wanted to, I suppose. Most of these are interchangeable. When I first started, I talked about floor and wall tile, and honestly, most of these are all interchangeable, meaning that they could be floor or wall tile. And so I don't really have a preference. I'll put it this way. Somebody will ask me what's an appropriate floor tile. I don't care. Doesn't matter. As long as it's not something like this. You know, any of these tile, if they're set right, are going to be appropriate for about any application that you want. Having said that, I don't like penny tile. And I'm not going to take it out of the package. It's a very, very flimsy backing, which I don't like. You can imagine everywhere you're at a perimeter, especially on a floor, you've got these little half cuts to make. Half cut, half cut, half cut, about the size of a dime. It might be a penny. I don't know, I'll have to check it out. This is a very busy tile. Back in the day, before we were waterproofing everything in a shower, I would be adamantly opposed to something like this on a shower floor. And I've been approached to do it before. I think I've done it once or twice. It's very difficult to work with because of the flimsy backing. It's hard to set the next row and the next row without, plus when this gets wet, these have a tendency of falling off of that backing because the glue is very kind of cheesy. Just a lot of problems with it, you know, trying to get this tile to not look like it's all that it flows and all that stuff, regardless of the little pattern that it has, a little puzzle pattern, which a lot of mosaics will have. They'll have a pattern just like I was telling you over here, where everything is interlocking to each other. I don't know, just my personal preference. I don't like it because of all the problems ensued with it. But as I said, back in the day, we weren't waterproofing. Nowadays, it doesn't really matter. I was always concerned about the preponderance of all the grout lines on, say, a 3x5 application. You got 15 of these tile, because this is 12x12. 15 of these they have to deal with. That's a lot of grout for water to get into your pan. But we're not really worried about that anymore because we're waterproofing everything. Then we get to this natural stone. I have set this more times than I want to remember, and there are different patterns of this type of stuff. It's basically, it's a travertine-ish, but it's more of a marble. And so, to be fair, marble really shouldn't be set in a wet area. Getting back to this, they have a matching marble floor tile. This is as close as I'm going to get to that. That are kind of interlocking. It's kind of a bread basket, bread weave type design. I've had a lot of customers had a lot of problems with water penetration getting up underneath, seeping through, because all tile, including this very dense material, well, somewhat dense material. The only thing denser than this is going to be, obviously, this one, which is going to be porcelain. But it's porous. Believe it or not, even if it's polished, it's going to be porous, and it's more porous from the bottom. And so when you get water seeping up under the bottom, even despite red guarding your surface of your pan and all that stuff, you run into problem with staining. This is not going to have that problem, necessarily. And I have said it quite a few times. But again, on the perimeter, you're doing these little tiny cuts and all this stuff. And it's just very problematic, and obviously I've cut this already. But it is problematic with making sure that this is all, working well. And it's somewhat of a flimsy backing too, so that presents a problem. You know, when I deal with a mosaic, anytime I deal with a mosaic, I always stand it up And if it wants to hang up in the air, then I know I have a good backing. If it kind of slouches down like this, then I know the backing isn't that great and the glue's not that great, etc., etc. So that's that. Again, natural stone, seal it well before you install it, seal it afterward, use a good grout. Then we get into our rock tile. So I'm just going to call this river rock. I think river rock is actually the manufacturer, whereas I just by default call every stone tile river rock. And this is truly rock tile. And a lot of people want this on their shower floor because they think it's going to massage their feet. And I'm here to tell you, if you like walking on rock, then okay. But, you know, I personally don't like it. See how some of these rocks are dipped down into the... See, the sizes aren't the same. Like you have here one contiguous size of the surface, and you don't have that here. So when you see it in the package, you're like, oh, that's so nice, I want that on my shower floor, until we get to the grout process, and then the grout fills in a lot of the edge of this rock. And so most of this rock that you see now, a good part of it's going to disappear with the grout. And it's not the same look that you started with. So know that to be true. If you start digging into the grout to make, you know, more of a line go on, then obviously you're setting yourself up for pooling. Water's going to pool here, 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 here. So yeah, you need a pretty good slope going on. Not the typical slope in order to make that work and drain and do everything functionally that it's supposed to. Hello, cat. I'm talking. You're just going to sit there and listen? Okay. This is a shaved rock, and it's not truly rock. The makeup of this tile is literally just kind of cut up and broken up and all that stuff from other pieces of the tile. So it's not really a rock tile, but I'm going to call it a shaved rock. And this you're not going to have a problem with that you have with this. When you fill in all these lines will be filled as you see it, and when we sponge it off, it's going to be nice and flat and everything will flow, and you shouldn't have any dips whatsoever. So this is a better tile to set for us than that would be. So that kind of goes through some of that process, and I'm going to get on to the thin set. When you have a darker, do I have a dark one? I talked about DeLorean gray. DeLorean gray is just a color of grout. I'm going to use a darker thin set, a gray thin set, when I'm setting a darker grout type of tile. Darker grout type of tile, darker grout type of tile, I'm going to use a darker thin set. When I'm using a lighter tile, I'm going to use a white thin set. I'm going to use white thin set because I know I don't want the bleed through. So if water gets up under where your grout's at, it could potentially bleed through. Say you're using a gray thin set for this, and you're going to use a light grout, and water gets through the grout, then the thin set could bleed up through the grout, and then you're seeing little gray dark spots or streaks or whatever. That's a potential hazard that could happen. So know about that. And that's about it. Curb top. Curb top comes in different flavors. This one is meant for a travertine or travertine lookish type of tile. Sometimes they're beveled on one side, sometimes they're beveled on both sides. This one isn't. So this will go on the inside of the shower. One long piece going across your curb, so you don't have any grout lines cut up. That's usually where we find damage or water penetration. 6 inches wide, so make sure that your tile guy knows his curb must be 6 inches. Usually they're about 5 or 5.5, and that usually comes in a 6-foot section. They come in different sections, but a 6-foot would be appropriate for most applications. And I just brought this along for kicks and giggles. This is a very, very, very thick porcelain replication of marble. Very cool, I like it. This was very pricey. I don't know if it has arrows, I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, if it doesn't have arrows, you still have to kind of do what you can to match up all the veins and all that stuff when you're setting it. Just makes for a lot better look. Then we have, last but not least, wood plank tile. And wood plank tile comes in a lot of different colorations. Wood plank tile, all the things that I talked about here applies to wood plank tile. This is a porcelain, kind of lower end porcelain, but still a porcelain nevertheless. It also comes in that cheesy ceramic that's glazed clay. Don't get that. This is a rounded edge, and they have flat edge porcelain also. That would be like a rectified tile, and so that's what I would suggest. It's just going to hide your grout lines a whole lot better. Also, when you're looking at this, and this is I think 18 inches, I've done it in 4 foot long. Put a tile back to back, face to face as it were. The reason it can do that, specifically the reason it can do that, because they bend. You see that? There's a gap. If I push on this end, that end's going to go up. If I push on this end, that end's going to go up, and some that are more profound gap than that. Shouldn't be able to spin it. So look at your tile, make sure you have a good quality tile, make sure you spend more for a tile. Take 2 out of a box from different boxes, match them up side by side, make sure that they match up like perfectly side by side, that there's no discrepancy, right? So I've got a straight line here that's flush, and I've got about a 1/16 discrepancy, plus we already know it's bowed because I was able to spin it and I showed you the discrepancy. The longer the tile, the more you're going to have that bowing effect, and the only way to mitigate that is leveling clips. So know that leveling clips are going to help you on large format tile almost 100% of the time. And that's about all I have to say. I hope I helped. I hope I uncovered some of the mystery of some of this tile and what goes where and why and the makeup and all that stuff. And hopefully you got something from it. And, you know, good luck shopping. You know, Floor & Decor is always a great place. All of this stuff came from Floor & Decor. You can get a good quality tile now sometimes at Home Depot or Lowe's. But honestly, shopping for tile at Home Depot is a little bit like grocery shopping at 7-Eleven. They're just not going to have the selection. They're not going to have some of the quality that a tile store would have. So anyway, good luck on your project. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're going to call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post a video. And thank you very much for your support.